You know, they say that imitation is in fact the sincerest form of flattery, and we here at Eurojank Theatre could not agree more. On this installment of Eurojank Theatre, we will be looking at the shameless Dark Souls clone, Lords of the Fallen. But before that, I'm going to stop using this accent before it drives away everybody that finds it annoying. Also shooting my green screen video at 4K. Isn't it so much better? Please say it's better. You know, when this game first came out, I was pretty excited to play it because the first Souls game that I played was actually Dark Souls 2. And when I finished playing Dark Souls 2, this game had just come out, and instead of, you know, naturally playing Dark Souls 1 or Demon Souls or Bloodborne, I decided to follow it up with Lords of the Fallen. Words cannot describe my disappointment. I couldn't have known. How could I have known? I mean, yeah, sure, Dark Souls 2 is the worst Souls game, but going from that to this is like going from shitting in a toilet with a bidet to shitting in a tree stump with a hole in it. Let's not jump right into all the negatives though, because you guys might not even know about Lords of the Fallen. I don't know, maybe you do. Developed by CI Games and Deck 13 and published by 3 different companies depending on which region you played it in, this game came out in 2014, and it released to a resounding
it's alright, innit?
There was also a sequel announced in December 2014, shortly after the first game released. It was supposed to come out in 2017. That didn't happen. The sequel has gone through like 2 or 3 development teams apparently in the time since it was originally announced. It's not really important when we're talking about the first game, but it felt like saying it. The basic plot of the game is there are demons coming from their realm to our realm, and you have to kill them. It's right off the bat, not winning any awards for originality here. You play as Harkin, and he is grouchy white bald guy number 8,000. He's an ex-prisoner who's got his crimes and whatnot tattooed all over his face so that even outside of prison, he can't escape his crimes. Pretty cool idea, if a little edgy. He's freed by Kozlo, a monk or priest or something, who needs some big ol' muscle to escort him to a monastery where most of the game takes place, unfortunately. The story is not really a highlight of the game, I wouldn't say. The lore is pretty underbaked, and the visual storytelling is also not fantastic. The setting is a very generic dark fantasy setting, and you know what? If that's what you're looking for in a game, more power to you. I kind of look for originality in a lot of the games that I play, and this game does not have an original bone in its body. For example, if you take a look at the bosses in the game, you'll see that we've got tall guy with a sword and shield, tall guy with a sword and shield, tall guy with a scythe, tall guy with 2 swords, tall guy with a mace, and a really tall guy with nothing. Now yes, there are a few other bosses in the game that don't follow this design, but they're all pretty lackluster, save for the final boss, who I thought looked pretty cool. All around, I think, excluding the DLC, I think there's only 10 bosses in the game, and with the DLC, there's 11. According to what I saw. I played the base game, but I didn't feel like playing the DLC. Unfortunately, a lot of the regular enemies in this game are pretty uncreative too. A lot of them are just guy with a blank. Whether it's a big axe, or a big sword, or a spear and a shield, or 2 little swords. It's just guy with blank. That's most of the enemies in this game. I don't like accusing, you know, dev teams of anything, but it really seems like this game was rushed out the door towards the end because the enemy placements are very odd. It seems like they just kind of copied and pasted enemies from very early on in the game. You know, the enemy design peaks like a couple hours into the game, and then you're just fighting the same like 5 or 6 dudes for the rest of the game. The sound design and music are also pretty ass. Frequently there will be like quiet dramatic music and ambient noise like constantly playing even when you're just sort of futzing around in a dark dungeon. So, you know, the comparison to the Souls games are the Souls games don't have really any music unless you're in the hub area or you're fighting a boss. It's like they just never shut up. The game does not shut up for even a minute, and I don't know why. The sound design is a pretty hard pass for me too, because a lot of the sound effects feel very muted, or they're just straight up stock sound effects that are like not edited in any way whatsoever. Every door you open in this game is that like stock creaky metal door sound effect, like you know the sound effect I'm talking about? There's some other areas that use this ambient wind blowing sound effect, and I swear to God, dude, if you've got your volume up like even a little too high and you're wearing headphones and you happen to walk through one of these areas, it will blow your eardrums out. It's so loud. All right, enough about the pee-pee poo-poo about the story and the artistic shit. Let's talk about the gameplay in this game. What am I doing with my finger? Now, obviously, I've got to keep drawing comparisons to the Souls games because this game is very much trying to be a Souls game right down to the control scheme. But somehow they made it worse because instead of cycling through your items with the D-pad, you know, like a human would, you have to like tap the X button to change your item and then you hold it to use it. There was nothing wrong with the D-pad system. Just copy that over. You're gonna copy everything else. Copy that too. Now, unlike the Souls games, Lords of the Fallen is very much a melee-focused game. There's not really a lot of like magic builds or anything that I found, and there isn't a lot of magic to be used in the game. There isn't a deep system of different kinds of spells and pyromancies and whatnot like the Souls games have. This does not have that. You're gonna spend 95% of this game swinging a big heavy chunk of metal around. You might be thinking, well, I play melee only in the Souls games anyway, so I'll probably like this game. No. Well, maybe it will. But the melee combat in this game, and I'm sure many people that have played it, even if they like it, can attest to this, it just feels a little off. There's something weird about it. Your animations feel like they're in slow motion. Everyone else feels like they're on fast forward. The sound design, like I was talking about before, when you hit stuff, it doesn't always really feel like you're hitting stuff hard. It's weird. It's like this game is in a vacuum chamber and all the sound effects are really muted. The hit detection is pretty bad, and the camera shake thing that they added in the game, dude, awful. The worst camera shake I've ever seen in a game. I turn camera shake off in most games anyway. Imagine my surprise when I could not figure out how to turn off the camera shake. And if someone in the comments tells me how to turn it off, I'll feel really stupid, but dude, I filed through those menus, I could not figure out how to turn it off. I like to imagine that the camera is on like a rubber duck in a floating bathtub, and every time you move or swing your weapon or something, the water in the tub starts doing this, and the camera just kind of bobs around. The camera doesn't shake in accordance to like what you're doing. You just do stuff and it just shakes all over the place, kind of incoherently. You've also got a gauntlet that you pick up early on, and that's your main projectile gameplay magic stuff that you get in this game. It has 3 different modes. One does a shockwave around you and knocks enemies away. One shoots a missile, and one lobs a little grenade that explodes and does AoE damage. You can equip different runes to them to give them different elements. You can do stuff like splitting the missile so it shoots 3 instead of 1. However, none of these runes really ever make the gauntlet feel useful. There's one use that I found for the gauntlet in the whole game, and they're these spider enemies that hang out on ceilings. If you shoot them with the missile, they fall down instead of landing on your head when you walk below them. They don't take fall damage though, which is kind of lame. I wish you could shoot them and like insta-kill them, but whatever. It really never did enough damage for me to actually feel useful, and maybe that was my build. Maybe there's a build where, you know, you one-shot every enemy in the game with this thing. I don't know. I don't think there is, but I don't know. The armor in the game is all useless unless you're wearing whatever the heaviest armor is that you have. Don't worry about stats or nothing. Make sure that the defense and the poise are the highest that you have, because you can't lose if you can't die. The real meta for this game is just tank every hit and keep swinging until whatever is in front of you is dead. Now, these Souls games, they're not just about fighting and killing stuff, they're about exploration and world building. And no, you're an idiot. It's not about that. Lords of the Fallen is largely made up of straight hallways and big rooms for you to fight stuff in. That's about it. Sometimes you go into like a really big room and you fight a boss in there. A really easy boss. The environments range from snowy castle to snowy courtyard to snowy hell castle to snowy hell courtyard to wet dungeon. This game is depressing. What really irks me about the hell dimension in this game is they could have done anything with it. They could have just done like some Doom stuff and just made everything bathed in red and lava everywhere and huge craggy rock castles and stuff and, you know, big electrical storms, and that would have been great. But instead we just got like the same thing as the regular world, but like a little darker and pointier. That's the best you got? I think that's my main takeaway from this game is it's just disappointing. There were so many, choices that they made that could have been really cool, but weren't. There were some technical issues later in the game too, and I don't know, maybe it was my computer. I don't feel like my computer spec is that bad, especially for a game that came out in 2014. But in the late game, there was a lot of like stuttering and like frame drops and stuff. And the game just ran like ass, especially in the last like 2 or 3 bosses for some reason. I don't know. It was fine up until then. Well, it crashed once. But aside from that, it was fine up until then. And then the game crashed twice on the final boss for me. And it just ran like ass. I don't know what happened. The fact that the sequel is taking like 7 or 8 years to make is either a really good thing because they're taking their time with it and building a very interesting, creative game, or it's a really bad thing and it's gonna be a shit show when it comes out. Oh, I gotta talk about the bonfire system in this game. They're not called bonfires. They're these big craggy red rocks that you find. It's the bonfire. I forget what it's called, but that's what it is. Here's a list of things that I hate about the bonfires in Lords of the Fallen. They don't refill all your potions when you use them. They only refill a few of them, unless you wait around for the little rocks to come up off the ground again, and then you can fill them. Just fill all the potions. Just fill them all. Why? Just fill all my potions. They're frequently placed somewhere just a little too close to enemies, so as soon as you walk away from it, you get clotheslined by some fucking gremlin who's just waiting for you to respawn. Time to get my ass fucking stomped into the dirt. Oh, that's nice. Have these guys spawn right on top of you. You can't fast travel between them, and the only reason that I can see for that in the game is padding. I can't figure out any real reason why you wouldn't be able to fast travel between them other than adding a few hours of padding to this already pretty short game. I mean, this game took me 11 hours to beat, and I probably spent, 2.5 to 3 of those hours just backtracking to some place that I had been before. So that's what, 25% of the game, or 25 to 30% of the game is just backtracking? Just add a fast travel. Just make an 8-hour game that doesn't have padding instead of an 11-hour game that's got 3 hours of padding. I don't get this, game design philosophy.
I don't get it.
There's this experience multiplier thing that goes up every time you kill an enemy, and it resets every time you use one of the bonfires. So it's supposed to be like, oh, don't use the bonfires too often, because then you won't get a big experience multiplier. Dude, I used one every time I saw one, and I was not underleveled at any point in the game. You do not have to worry about that. Just use them. So the story is boring. The environment and sound design are boring. The gameplay is very hit or miss. So what is it that people seem to like about this game so much? It's fun to hit stuff sometimes. That's all I got. Occasionally, as with many games that aren't great but are okay, the combat will sort of come together and you might have 2 or 3 encounters in a row that are actually fun and engaging. I think the idea is there, right? It's like Dark Souls, but with more of a focus on a linear story. It's got more of a generic dark fantasy setting, so I think it's easier for some people to get into because the Souls series, if anything, is a bit confusing, I get it. The combat is meant to have a much heavier, slower, and more methodical feel to it. I don't think it quite worked the way they thought it was going to, at least in my opinion. I think that rather than feeling heavy, I just felt slow and bored. Not quite the same. Granted, the game was not difficult because I was slow, because I just tanked everything and kept swinging until everybody was dead, but it wasn't that exciting or fun. It felt like I was just going through the motions. The game really shot itself in the foot by being so similar to Dark Souls, and I think The Surge, which was also developed by Deck 13, was a much better example of taking the Souls formula and really putting your own unique spin on it. And maybe that's why we haven't seen a Lords of the Fallen 2, because they made The Surge and people like that more, and they made The Surge 2, people like that even more. Maybe we just won't make Lords of the Fallen 2. Who knows? Is Lords of the Fallen worth trying? I mean, at this point you could get a Steam key on CD keys for $4. I think that's how I got mine. And for $4, it's worth trying. You get into it. Maybe play through the first couple bosses and see if it's picking up at all for you. It didn't for me. I played it to make the video, but if I wasn't making a video, I would have stopped after the second boss. I don't hate Lords of the Fallen. I think it's serviceable. It is a video game that does work when you play it, but it's just not particularly for me. And you know what? Maybe that's saying something, because I like Dark Souls 2 a lot, and some people don't even think it's worthy of being called a Souls game. So what do I know? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed the latest installment of Eurojank Theatre. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as it really helps me and the channel a lot. Don't forget to check out my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/resetget, where I play these games before I make the videos on them. The next Then and Now video is going to be about a certain ring that is very old, as well as a certain soul that belongs to a certain demon. It's gonna be Demon Souls versus Elden Ring. So make sure you subscribe to my Twitch channel so you can watch me suffer through those games, much like I suffered through Lords of the Fallen. Different kind of suffer though. More like a Stockholm Syndrome kind of suffer. I can't wait to play Elden Ring, man. I'm so ready. See ya.